So, we're about to play Goblins, but this is not your typical Goblins deck. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Modern video, and today John B has sent me kind of a crazy deck list. So, this is going to be an Artifact Synergies Goblin deck that has a combo finish, but could just play fair. And the deck is built around Crime Novelist. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Crime Novelist and add 1 red mana. You have ways in this deck to sacrifice stuff, with Goblin Bombardment probably being the best one, and Krekno Baron of Tin Street being a less common one. Let's move you over here. So, haste, sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on each goblin you control. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 1. If you do, make a 1/1 red goblin creature token. It gains haste until the end of turn. So what we want to be able to do is try and go infinite. So let's say that we have something like an animation module here. Whenever a +1/+1 counter is put on a permanent you control, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 servo artifact creature token. So we can establish a loop that looks something like have Goblin Bombardment, sack something. Let's say we sack an artifact creature like an Urza Saga Construct token. We're going to start this loop. We're going to get our red mana, put a +1/+1 counter. A +1/+1 counter has been put on a creature, so we can pay 1 to get a servo. So this is the sort of stuff that we are going to do. We have some things that will give us bonus artifacts, like the Enterprising Scallywag, that if we descended, we can get a treasure token. We have ways to just give our generic goblins haste. We can make a bunch of goblins with Kuldotha Rebirth. Or not quite goblins, but we can also get, or no, they are just Phyrexian goblins with Gleeful Demolition. And like you might see in a format like Pauper, or might have seen, I don't remember if this card is still legal, Experimental Synthesizer can do some serious work in any deck looking to grind some artifact-based value. So let's see if this strange goblins combo artifact deck has any legs. And folks, very, very soon, Tarkir Dragonstorm is going to be legal across all of the various formats. You're going to need cards from the set. The set is absolutely jacked. Please consider checking out my sponsor for those cards. DOAMagic.com always gives you free shipping, and promo code ThrabenU will save you a little bit on top of that on your order. All right, let's battle. Okay, this looks reasonable. We can play an Experimental Synthesizer and then blow it up with Gleeful Demolition, try to buff those goblins, or otherwise start playing Krekno and doing Krekno things. Haha, we got super lucky there and we did hit the bobble. Is there any reason why I don't want to crack this immediately? I could save this. I'm going to save this for 1 turn. I want land drop 3 for Krekno. Yeah, I would like land drop 3 for Krekno. Okay, we're just going to get breached. Anamorphose, or are we storming? Stock up. Either way, it appears that I am not immediately dead, which is good. Okay, I did not hit a land drop this time, so I probably need to try to hit land drop 3 next turn. Let's go ahead and play Soul Guide Lantern. I'll take a Ritual out of graveyard. I guess I should have done this in the other order in case I hit a relevant 1 drop, which I did not. I will go ahead. I guess I don't need to do it immediately. I can do it on their turn. See what you're drawing. Valakut Awakening. Mountain? Baral. Alright, so looks like we're doing storm stuff. Reckless Impulse. Another ritual they can cast. They don't currently have blue for that Electromancer. New ritual. Okay. You got it. My opponent only has 2 cards left. Yes, they have fizzled. That is Crime Novelist. Am I just getting in with Krekno here? I don't really want to sacrifice an artifact immediately. Next turn, I've got some cool stuff with Experimental Synthesizer. I don't really know that I'm pressuring my opponent enough here. I think I need this Soul Guide Lantern in the short term. Hopefully next turn I do something cool with Experimental Synthesizer. My opponent takes the 3. Goblin Electromancer comes into play. My opponent now has double block options available to them on something like Krekno. I do have a 4th land drop, which means I could just go Battlecry Goblin and get in there. Let's see what happens with this. There's another Experimental Synthesizer. I was kind of thinking about sacrificing this one after playing Crime Novelist. Let's do that still. So bam. Let's sacrifice an artifact and do these things. I'm going to get my red. I don't want the bonus goblin. I think I want to play this artifact. I'm going to say no. Another Experimental Synthesizer. I will go ahead and cast one of these. There's a Kuldotha Rebirth. I could sacrifice this artifact to keep going and do some cool things, which I'm probably not supposed to do because my opponent might use their graveyard for things like Past in Flames, but this is too cool. So let's do this. So I'm going to say no to this. Exile that graveyard. Sacrifice or destroy? Sacrifice. Okay, so sacrifice this one. Yeah. Make another mana. Say no to that. Synthesizer. Okay. We are cooking. So now, sack this. I am up to 2 mana. Do I pay this time? I will pay this time. So get a haste token. Got a ritual coming. I will play an Experimental Synthesizer. There's a Kuldotha Rebirth. I do not have a way to sacrifice an artifact to keep the chain going, unfortunately. All right, this is fine. Send you, send you, send you. I don't need to send you to your death. So my opponent can block 1, take 4. Okay, this popped off way harder than I was expecting as of the beginning of this turn. Opponent is at 13. Crime Novelist is big. Krekno can make all these goblins very big. I can potentially also just Battlecry Goblin next turn as well. I think if I don't die, I don't even need to do the math. I just turn all of my creatures sideways. Okay. John, you were cooking with this. So what do I have for some Storm-type stuff? This can hedge against Past in Flames. I could do stuff like this to try to interact with the little duders. I could try to Stone Rain my opponent, but I have a bunch of expensive stuff that I already want to tap out for. I don't know that that's correct. I have these things that are okay at stopping Past in Flames based lines, but when stuff just goes to exile, that's not great for me. I could Pithing Needle the backside of Ral, whatever that's called, or I could Unholy Heat. The Pyrite Spellbomb doesn't kill everything, which feels problematic. Unholy Heat has a much better chance at killing stuff. I'm going to sub that out. The artifact cards that I am getting with a Goblin Engineer are things like the Animation Module. These are maybe expendable. I maybe don't need the Shadow Spear here. This is 59. I could then make some other cuts and run a couple Unholy Heats or something. How big is Ral? Ral is a 1/3. So I can hit Goblin Electromancer with Unholy Heat, but not the other ones, unless I have Delirium. I will play one of those. I don't know how reliant on things like Past in Flames this deck is. I am not a Modern specialist, and it has been a couple of weeks since I played a Modern League. I think I am going to go ahead and just throw down Cage immediately. I don't know that it makes sense to just throw down Experimental Synthesizer on my turn 1. I give up the potential value of hitting another card with it. So I imagine that my opponent will make a friend here. They do. Well, I guess I could make some friends. Let's start here. Soul Guide Lantern. Slightly redundant as of right now. I think I am fine just taking my value and playing it, though. I can cycle that into a draw a card later. Here we go. My opponent did fail at going off last time. They are at 16 after those Ral flips. And Ren's Resolve 15. Stock up very good here. They're going for it. 13. Reckless Impulse. And Pyretic Ritual. And a Desperate Ritual. Ral has flipped, which I'm going to presume means that I probably lose this game. This card has a lot of words on it that are not good for me. Alright, so there's Past in Flames, plus 8 cards in exile. I have Past in Flames covered, so it's the other stuff that is scary here. There is a new Ral, and my opponent will presumably win a flip on that at some point, and then just repeat this process. The 2 mana exile 8 thing, pretty good. So there's multiple wishes within those cards now. Probably not good for me. So my opponent's going to filter through a handful of cards. And at this point, I think I'm going to fast forward to something interesting happening. Okay, another Ral happened, and now Grape Shot is going on the stack, which is going to kill me. So we stopped the Past in Flames temporarily, but as you can see here, there's still so many things that don't use the graveyard. I think I'm going to Pithing Needle for the backside of Ral, watching how that game went. I might not play Grafdigger's Cage. I can still sacrifice the Soul Guide Lanterns to something like Krenko and get appropriate value there. I don't really know that Unholy Heat is good. I don't know how quickly I actually put 4 different card types into my graveyard. Oh, my opponent is just not interested in playing Magic with me. Well, I win. GG's. Wasn't close. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is just the best place to keep your online deck lists. And one of the things that I love about them is that you can use it to keep track of what cards you do and don't have for a deck. So for example, in this deck list, I have all of the cards, so there are nice blue bubbles filled in here, and that's automatically ported over to your collection tab, where you can see exactly what cards you do and don't have. Okay, I am going to need a little bit more from this hand. I'm missing a land. I have good pieces to get things started, but I need more. I think there are enough different interesting draws that I can keep this, but I have no real clue how much I need to make a hand keepable. If I draw the land, I can play Krenko and start getting in there with Krenko next turn. Krenko plus Animation Module is the highest upside thing there, probably. But I don't have mana immediately. Let's play the thing that might get me more mana. Spell Snare. Sure. Polluted Delta from my opponent. Into Watery Grave. And Psychic Frog. I miss out on my land drop here. I am obviously very interested in Animation Module plus Crime Novelist. I'm going to get Goblin Bombardment into play. Like, working towards these 3 cards, doing crimes, is I think where I'm at. Opponent has a land drop, and now gets to start doing the Psychic Frog stuff. The more controlling elements my opponent has, be that odd, counterspells or removals, the worse off I am. I'm going to throw down Animation Module, and I am pretty close to play Crime Novelist, sacrifice an artifact, go off. Opponent fetches, and gets a Surveil land. Another land, Cameo, which will flip off of these Psychic Frogs. Tameo is certainly a nuisance for my deck that would like to make a large number of 1/1 Goblin tokens. So Tameo effectively starts at 4 loyalty here, and I get Thought Seized. I have lost Battlecry Goblin. Not great. This is probably the point where I just concede to double Psychic Frog plus active Tameo. Like, I can make a few 1/1 Goblins. I can try to throw them at a Tameo or throw them at a Psychic Frog. Tameo can minus for another Thoughtseize. I think I am just dead to missing my own land drops here. So what do I want versus this blue-black tempo deck? I could Pithing Needle for Tameo. I could Unholy Heat, which may or may not actually kill Psychic Frog. I probably need the Unholy Heats. Pyrite Spellbomb actually killing things? I don't know if Pyrite Spellbomb is actually killing things. I might trim some Goblin Engineers and call that good. This does not have keepable mana. I need red. Geez, this is pretty likely to just die to itself. Like, I am trying to rely on Experimental Synthesizer to hit my land drops. I need 2 land drops to make it to Crime Novelist. And I don't think Kuldiltha Rebirth for a handful of small goblins is going to beat the Psychic Frog deck. This is pretty bad. On 5, we're probably keeping this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I just try to be doing good things with Urza Saga value. I can play Experimental Synthesizer on turn 2. My opponent has also mulliganed to 5, though. But they have Psychic Frog in their deck. 18. So presumably some form of interaction is being held up. No Surveil land? Wild. Okay. I just kind of assumed that I would have a Surveil land in the mana base. I'm wrong. Do I try to Synthesizer for value? If I don't try to Synthesizer for value immediately, I don't Synthesizer for a few turns. I am okay with that. We saw Spell Snare last game, so let's lead on Animation Module here, rather than be more mana efficient with Goblin Bombardment. We could eat a different piece of cheap interaction, but we don't. I could play Experimental Synthesizer in this turn cycle, purely to grow the Urza Saga Construct tokens that are coming, but then I don't use this card for its intended value-oriented purposes. Opponent has Consigned to Memories. Good to know. This is the new... Well, I guess it's not new. I didn't know these were seeing play. Arena of Glory, sure. We will just play a mountain and pass, and then start going down the Urza Saga value route. 3rd land drop. Okay. I like this, where my opponent is not beating me to death with 2 separate Psychic Frogs. This feels better. So I will go ahead and make another friend. These are 3/3s. Do I want the Spear? Soul Guide Lantern has some text here. I think I'm just going to take the Spear. Drop an Arena of Glory. Drop a Mishra's Bauble. There is a Dismember in response. Sure. Do I want to cycle this, or do I want this to be a 4/4? I think I would like to cycle this. Sink into Stupor incoming. That's fine. I am okay passing the turn here. And a Fatal Push as follow-up. My board is clear. That is unfortunate. Ranko. Now I just don't really have enough mana to do the things that I would want to do. That helps. Do I actually Krenko this turn? I'm not sure that I do. I think I'm going to try to do this first. Just tapping out for Krenko while my opponent has just something that can blank my turn doesn't feel great. A Kuldiltha Rebirth. Can do that on the Synthesizer. Get some goblins, work towards Krenko being good. That seems fine. I'm not going to play the land drop in case I hit another land that I could play here. Unholy Heat is a miss. Alright, opponent is going to return Kuldiltha Rebirth to my hand. Not all that big of a deal. I could make goblins immediately. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I am just going to stick Goblin Bombardment here. And pass the turn. Alright, opponent is just passing. So now, what's my order here? So if I play Krenko and then Kuldiltha Rebirth, I sack an artifact. I could pay 1 immediately. I think I want to play the Kuldiltha Rebirth first, targeting the Shadow Spear. Or rather, using the Shadow Spear. Then I'll Krenko. So, am I just sacking Animation Module? Looks like it. I will pay for the bonus goblin. Bowmaster, sure. Targeting a goblin. So I will throw that goblin at your Bowmaster in response. So you don't get an orc token. I will pay 1. Then these get +1/+1 counters. I can swing in for 2. And I have a respectable amount of power, but I don't have follow-up artifacts. If I try to do something with Krenko that turn, I lose the animation module that can give me the servos that kind of keep this going. Which is sort of unfortunate, but we shove. I'm not the worst versus a single target removal on Krenko. Okay, it is on a goblin token. So I will Goblin Bombardment, target your face, throw that goblin token. Wow, my opponent's taking the rest. I feel like I have hot garbage going on here, but they haven't produced a threat all game. We win. I don't know that I feel like I had a winning hand that game, but we did win. Yeah, we're kind of artifact light for Krenko when we don't have a scallywag to help. That probably means that Goblin Engineer is not great. I don't really draw very many bonus cards. I don't think I need to go crazy on something like Pyrite Spellbomb for Bowmaster. Pyrite Spellbomb is just not going to kill a lot of the stuff that I care about. Let's put another random artifact in the deck to help with the problem that we just saw. This is a one-lander that can't use Kuldotha Rebirth very well. It has a redraw. I don't like this. I mean, I'm probably keeping this. I am not the happiest about this. There's some question about like when I physically play my cards. I think I wait a little while on the synthesizer, given how this hand looks. I think I'm going to play both of my spells next turn. Opponent considers. And an island on their second turn. Sure. Battlecry Goblin is fine once I get to more mana. I'm going to go ahead and cast a Bauble now. Going to play the Scallywag. And then do this so that I can get my treasure. The treasure matters for both of these. Opponent has a land coming. I'll get that treasure. That seems like the wrong time to play that card, right? You wait till upkeep, you ping this in upkeep, and then I draw the bonus card and you ping it again, and then you actually get the value of a removal spell. I don't know the exact contents of my opponent's hand. Never mind. It's another fucking Bowmaster. Anyway, you remember how I said I did not draw very many cards? I stand by that, but boy, that sucks. I would like to stop yielding through this turn. There we go. So I can now Unholy Heat something if I want to use a mana this turn. I can take one more damage to not. This is worth 1 damage this turn, maybe not after that. I'll kill the Bowmaster. Note, I had better timing for playing that spell. I had just F6'd the turn. All right, Experimental Synthesizer. Or Krenko. So because I played out the Unholy Heat using the treasure, I got punished by having a 3-drop on top. Rough. So be it. Yeah, and yeah. I think I will hold the Bauble to see if I can do something else with it. I don't think I want to play that directly into Bowmasters here. I maybe should put it into play so it can't get Thought Seized, as I have no other Thought Seized target currently. I'm going to take 4 from this attack. This Orc kills me pretty quickly. That Psychic Frog kills me even more quickly. Goblin Bombardment is not really what I am looking for right now. I don't physically have all that much stuff. Let's see if we can do something cool with Experimental Synthesizer here. That is a Consign to Memory, unfortunately, so I do not get a redraw here, which I think means that I probably just die to this bullshit. I'll hold off on the Bauble again. I do not currently have an artifact to get any artifact-based synergies going if I draw them. So my opponent can make Psychic Frog massive. I could throw both creatures in front of Psychic Frog, but what am I even doing at that point? I might need to block once so that I don't just take 9 and then can't fetch. I will buy that. My opponent just junks a land, and then Psychic Frog wins combat. I'm at 6. And there's a Murktide Regent. Not great. I do not believe I have any outs to win this game anymore. I don't think this deck is objectively powerful enough to beat this board. So I can play Crime Novelist, sack an artifact, get a +1/+1 counter, and then very handily die in the air. I do not have an engine going here. Hypothetically, what happens if I get 1 card deeper? It is just another land. GG. Okay. If I keep this hand, I am just making 6 fucking goblins and YOLOing it, which I think I am doing. So how do I make 6 fucking goblins? Because I can start with 3 goblins on turn 1 off Mishra's Bauble, but then I don't have a redraw. It might be better to blow up Experimental Synthesizers and take my redraw. It just really depends on how quickly my opponent comes out of the gates. I think we go goblins now. I've got 3. Modern is a format where you don't really start at 20 life. There's definitely a mana-based tax, so let's try to take advantage of that and just get in there. Like, sometimes my opponent shocks and then thought seizes, right? Basic Forest, Gilded Goose, this is bullshit. How dare you? So this stops one of my points of damage every turn, and then gives my opponent some ways to do some stuff at endgame. Let's scallywag this turn. Let's assume that this game goes on for a little while, because I think I get in for some points of damage this turn, but if my opponent is playing one creature, more are going to follow immediately, right? This is not what we wanted to see on the other side of the table after leading on make 3 goblins. Sometimes they use the Gilded Goose for mana immediately, though, and it doesn't block. Seems like they've got something to do now. Alright, there is a shock. Every time I see that card, I know my opponent is up to no good. So, we Synthesizer. Oh, I hit a Rebirth. Okay. So, I will Rebirth Battlecry Goblin in exile. I won't be able to cast that one. I don't have another artifact for Gleeful Demolition immediately, which probably means that I should not drop a Synthesizer this turn. There's a sorcery, I can't do it with the treasure token I get later. Yep, alright, send him sideways. And it's just a matter of how quickly does my opponent combo us with Yawgmoth or whatever it is that they're actually doing. My opponent's going to take 4. Oh no. Nope, nothing yet. Opponent's at 10. I will make my treasure. The treasure I could Gleeful Demolition next turn, which I might do. I'll have a few different experimental synthesizer based lines. Land drop. Haywire Might, which could get weird with experimental synthesizer, I suppose. I guess we are starting here. This leaves the battlefield? It is. I get my land. Do I want to Gleeful Demolition that? That is a destroy target artifact thing. Haywire Might could mess that up. I could Gleeful Demolition the treasure token instead. And then curse myself when I hit a 3-drop. And then just sacrifice this for a normal value next turn. I'm gonna leave myself the option to hit a 3-drop. Alright, they did not react with Haywire Might. It's a new land, which is not what I want to see. So now I will play Shadow Spear, put it on a dude, and just send in. I think Court of Calling is pretty likely to happen here. Not immediately. Haywire Might blocking, and then Gourd. Shock to 7. Board for 2. Are we going to see a Bowmaster? A Samwise. Is my opponent dead? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? No. Okay, they can sacrifice the Haywire Might to stay alive. Whenever a non-token creature you control enters, make a food. Sacrifice 3 foods, bring something back. Okay, that's fine. Let's see if I die to some combo this turn. Otherwise, I just shove a bunch of goblins sideways and my opponent probably dies. Alright, Birthing Ritual. Oh, we just win. Unexpected. Turn goblin sideways plan worked. Let's do some of this removal nonsense here. I need to read the exact text of Birthing Ritual. It is a look at the top 7, so it is not sending them to exile first or anything. Yeah, so Grafdigger's Cage seems good. Pirate Spellbombs are also potentially okay. I don't know if I should Pithing Needle. Let's assume Soul Guide Lantern can probably go. I think I'm going to cut Goblin Engineer in like every round. I just don't think I have enough artifacts to support that. I would need 3 more cuts if I want to play all of these. Is it the Scallywags, or do I need those artifacts? Is it the Battlecry Goblins? Battlecry Goblin has not done a lot, but in theory, I get a handful of goblins and I activate that, and it makes for a quick finish. Maybe I don't need it if I start spiraling. I don't know. So, I do not currently have an artifact to get things going, unless I use Bloodstained Mire on turn 3 to make a treasure token or 2. I am not getting out of the gates quickly. I cannot interact with my opponent's creatures here. I am going to try to trust in the deck to deliver an artifact to make this pop off. But it is very possible that I just end up being too slow here and I just die to whatever combo my opponent has. Forest, Goose. Dead Goose? I think Dead Goose. Like, there are definitely better creatures to kill in my opponent's deck, but since they have Chord of Calling type cards that care about the number of creatures they have in play, taking one out while I have the opportunity to is fine. So I could go for Experimental Synthesizer value immediately this turn, or play the Scallywag. I could Scallywag and Descend this turn. Let's do that. And then maybe I can do something cool with Crime Novelist and the Treasure next turn. Don't kill my Scallywag. He's just a little guy. Oh, that's fine. Yeah. All right, so I make my Treasure. Scary. And there's going to be another play. Sylvan Safekeeper. All right, so my Unholy Heat style cards are going to be ineffective from here. Bowmaster's down. Samwise in. Sure. Let's see if we can do something cool. So, Crime Novelist. Sack 4 red. Crime Novelist trigger. Get a second red. Play Experimental Synthesizer. What's that? That's a Scallywag. Let's make that bigger. Let's just Kuldotha Rebirth. Get my mana. Shadow Spear. Leave that Scallywag in exile. I will cast a Shadow Spear. Send in for 2. I have a new treasure token, which lets me do things with Crime Novelist. But this is where I need something else to make this good. The 3/5 will block these smaller creatures, but assuming that my opponent chains Birthing Ritual into some sort of combo over the next couple of turns, I don't know that Shadow Spear Crime Novelist is going to just innately be good enough. All right, Orc Army down into Gilded Goose. My opponent gets multiple foods, and now my opponent could get a historic card back to hand. Well, let's try to give him the heat. Gaining life, getting Shroud. That is acceptable. Let's play a Scallywag. I will sack a treasure. That's 2 mana immediately. I will go to equip on Crime Novelist. Go to Punchies. Send this. Send this. I can push 2 damage at the cost of a Goblin, which seems fine. So my opponent will take their free block. I guess it's only 1 damage at the cost of a Goblin. Just quick note here. I can make my opponent's stuff lose Hexproof. I can't make it lose Shroud. The Goose. And Birthing Ritual stuff happens. I need just a little something to get me over the finish line here. I'm very worried about just drowning to Birthing Ritual. Goose becomes Cauldron Familiar. Sure. Mountain is not what I need. Mana has so much food. Send it, send it, send it. Does trample, which is nice. I don't really care if I lose these small goblin tokens. Let's send in everybody. Alright, opponent is at the preserve life stage of the game. Alright, everything goes to the graveyard. I'll hold this land. Actually, because of things like Experimental Synthesizer, maybe I just play the land. And I will descend. So I will get more stuff in a second. I did not descend? Oh, it is permanent card, and I lost tokens. Alright. Cauldron Familiar giving my opponent some life. Absolutely relevant. So then, how good is the Birthing Ritual trigger? Cauldron Familiar gets sacked. My opponent's got a Seer. Then Cauldron Familiar gets returned. That's another drain. Oh shit, this kills me, doesn't it? So my opponent sacks a Cauldron Familiar, sacks the food. This is the loop. So this was my opponent's combo kill. All right, I see. So I am dead to that. Okay, now I understand what's killing me. I already boarded in Grafdigger's Cage, right? Yes, I did already board in Grafdigger's Cage. Okay, do I want a Needle Seer? Like, is Needle actually better than the more flexible Pyrite Spellbomb? Maybe not. I am kind of having trouble telling what I would cut past this point. So I have a Rebirth with no artifacts. I have a Goblin Bombardment with no creatures. I have an Urza Saga that is incredibly slow. I don't think this is proactive enough. This can do some scallywag Krenko stuff. This is fine. I keep one of the 2 artifacts. I keep all 3 lands. It is a little hard to use the Pyrite Spellbomb in terms of curving out, I think. When do I activate this if I play it out on turn 1? Way later. Whereas my turn 4 can be play Experimental Synthesizer, sack it to Krenko, and hopefully do some cool stuff. Yes, this can already be in play for that, but is less value. I'll have an artifact for Krenko purposes already. I'm going to begrudgingly keep the Spellbomb, and I'll play it out on 1 and pass. I will be able to descend on turn 2 to get me bonus mana. Cauldron Familiar, you've got it. Grafdigger's Cage, that is fantastic. I don't think I need to play it this turn. I think I need to just play my 2-drop that starts scaling me. So I'll make my treasure. Pyrite Spellbomb is online. I would prefer to wait. Sure? Wall of Roots, that is fine. Young Wolf. Alright, so there is Yogg combo in here too. Got it. I would like to put Grafdigger's Cage into play this turn, which means not getting maximum Krenko value. So be it. So I will Krenko. I will sack this. I don't have mana for Krenko. I think I'll just pass the turn here and leave up the ability to activate Krenko after I get this treasure token. Surveil from my opponent. I don't know how much Abrupt Decay type stuff they have that can mess with us. Another Young Wolf, that's fine. So then there's the Birthing Ritual trigger. Yes. I liked the part where my opponent killed one of their creatures and did not get a creature in return. Actually, I guess I don't want to activate Krenko immediately. Okay. So, play Crime Novelist. Sacrifice Pyrite Spellbomb to kill a Young Wolf. Make a mana. Krenko. Yes, I will make a goblin with that. Then the Undying thing happens, but it can't come back. Now, I would like to sacrifice a treasure token to activate Krenko's ability. I will get a mana. I will pay the mana to Krenko. I will put a +1/+1 counter on all of my various goblins. Alright. Send it. The opponent doesn't want to block with Wall of Roots there. This is fine. I also now have another treasure token to continue to do things with Crime Novelist. There is Samwise. Samwise Cauldron Familiar, not all that scary if I have a Grafdigger's Cage in play. That's a tapped Temple Garden. Opponent appears to be in trouble. Kuldotha Rebirth, you say? Sounds good. Kuldotha Rebirth. Target a... Or I guess not target a treasure token. This one doesn't target. So, sacrifice a treasure token. There is a Krenko trigger. I will do the thing with Crime Novelist. I will pay for Krenko. I will make a bunch of friends. Presumably this is just lethal. I sack Grafdigger's Cage. Or what is this? Block, block, block. This is not lethal. Nobody tramples or anything. Send this, send this, send this, send this. Send this. That seems fine. I run out of artifacts pretty quickly. My opponent is at 4. I did not have a permanent card go to graveyard. I just need this Grafdigger's Cage. I mean, maybe I don't, but, like, stuff happens. Your Court of Calling, you say? Yeah. Grafdigger's Cage. Hard carried this last game here. GG's. So I'm starting to feel the tension of this deck. If we sacrifice Experimental Synthesizer to Kuldotha Rebirth to get goblins, then I don't have artifacts left to make the goblins bigger later. We'll figure it out. Leyline of the Guild Pact. We are probably not great versus a giant life-linking creature. I am going to put Shadow Spear into play. And I might end up blowing that up to Kuldotha Rebirth. Yeah, I don't think this deck has enough artifacts. Opponent has a couple ETB tapped lands. That buys me some time. Animation Module is cool. I need more mana now. I'm going to play Experimental Synthesizer and see if I can just randomly hit a land on top. Okay. I think the game has pivoted, though, given that hit. I think I am now making Urza Saga Construct tokens for the next couple of turns. And then I'll have some artifacts. When my opponent is sitting here in my end step, I wonder if they have a piece of interaction in there trying to figure out what to use it on. Or if they should just hold. Hold. Yeah, there is a creature with a whole lot of keywords. So I'm going to make some Urza Saga tokens. They don't get to block Scion of Draco, unfortunately, but hopefully they can attack through. And maybe I can get my own lifelink going at some point this game. The issue with leaning on Urza Saga Construct tokens, though, is that I want to sacrifice artifacts to do the things that my deck is designed to do, which means that these get smaller. What do I even do here? I'm going to get a second animation module. If my opponent removes one of my things, this is still a 5/5. That still wins in combat versus Scion of Draco. So let's try to get in there. There's the block. Okay. Alright, so they are going to do a post first strike damage leyline binding on the construct token. Sure. That's not that bad. That was a 1-for-1 trade where my opponent gained 4 life. Am I playing a Kuldotha Rebirth this turn? I think I am not. I think that's just my turn. I'm going to take 4 more on my opponent's next combat step. I'm at 12. Tribal Flames. Yes, that is happening. Rough. Alright, my opponent's at 31. I need to do something broken here. Crime Novelist animation module? That does something, right? So I play Crime Novelist. I junk Experimental Synthesizer with Kuldotha Rebirth. That will give me a mana. I use the mana to animation module, probably. Do I give this haste? I probably don't give this haste. I think I want this land next turn. So Crime Novelist, Kuldotha Rebirth, junk Experimental Synthesizer, get my mana, trigger this. I will make a friend so that I have more artifacts for next turn. Don't have mana for this one. Synthesizer hits another one of those. That doesn't matter immediately. And then next turn I move Shadow Spear here and hopefully go wild. I had something like a Goblin Bombardment that could just sacrifice this servo token at will. We're infinite here. But we don't. I'm at 7. Tribal Flames, I am at 2. And I presume a Lightning Bolt. I am dead. We're just a turn too slow there, unfortunately. I will probably fuck with my opponent's lands here. Going to sideboard out the Goblin Engineers. Soul Guide Lantern matter. Soul Guide Lantern is an artifact. That's probably about all that matters for it. I guess it draws a card. Alright, Spellbomb also draws a card. Get rid of 1 Scallywag. Keep a couple of innate artifacts. This is awkward. Urza Saga does not get to just do Urza Saga stuff here. I could play it on 1 to try to work towards something like Animation Module. But I feel like it's just going to have the disappearing land problem in a lot of games. And I can't just lead on it on 1 and then... I could Bloodstained Mire on 1, Shadow Spear, Experimental Synthesizer on 2, try to hit a land drop between Experimental Synthesizer and my other stuff. This feels clunky. I think I can find a more stable 6. This is a more stable 6. It is not going places fast in all likelihood, but it's got some stuff going for it. I'm going to get rid of Bobble and keep this other stuff. Okay, my opponent just has the ley lines. I'm just going to do this and pass. And then we will play a synthesizer on 2, see if we can use it to hit a land drop, which would be cool. No, but we found another synthesizer. We'll fetch and then play that. We found another synthesizer. I don't get to cast that one. And then my opponent will fetch some Triome or whatever. Shock. And I am not great at fighting that card. We've already figured that out. I would like to put goblins in play prior to Krekno if possible. I think I'm going to go ahead and Gleeful Demolition. I hit Shadow Spear. I was kind of planning on playing Goblin Bombardment this turn. Oh well. I will take my value. Opponent shocking yet again. Territorial Kavu. My opponent has large creatures. Not great for me. I'm into this. So let's Krekno. Sack the synthesizer. I should have stacked that the other way, actually, in case I hit a 1-drop that's good. I was pretty sure that I was committed to this, but I should have done it in the other order. A Leyline Binding. I don't think that has to be done with that timing, right? Okay, there is a new Krekno in exile. All of these can attack, but it's just not good to. And now I don't have my ability to just keep making goblins with Krekno and trying to go wide with Goblin Bombardment. So my opponent's Territorial Kavu, unfortunately, also gets all of the words on it. So no blocks, and I'm basically just dead. Like, these things trample. I could just die to Tribal Flames Lightning Bolt immediately. Like, I can blow up a land here with Obsidian Charmaw. I can't really move Shadow Spear around. The keywords here just absolutely ate me alive. GG's. I think we are trying to work too hard. Alright, final round already. I do not have any land. This is a mulligan. I do not like these Urza Saga hands. The disappearing land situation is a big problem. I think I have to keep this hand, though. I am fully reliant on drawing a third land to play a reasonable game of Magic, I think. So I play Urza Saga on 2, fetch on 2 for the Scallywag to get the treasure token, and then hopefully I draw a land to let me do the Urza Saga stuff that I want to do. Technically that is a land. Alright. Get Mountain, play Scallywag. And I can try to stack up treasure tokens for Urza Saga construct artifact count. And then work towards going wide with Goblin Bombardment stuff. We bolting? Alright, so if my opponent had Galvanic Discharge, they were not supposed to let me get this treasure token. That is an objective error. Second land drop. Raven Charm destroying my Urza Saga. Fantastic. Am I playing one again immediately? Probably. It just really sucks if the same thing happens again. We're going to dump Battlecry Goblin into play in case that ends up doing something cool. Like, there are turns where I don't activate Urza's Saga because I just Gleeful Demolition and Battlecry and get in for a shit ton of damage. I don't think I am likely to be in one of those games, but those games exist. Yes. Alright, cool. No onboard pressure. Synthesizer Gleeful Demolition. Let's not. Let's make some big creatures. I think if I go too far down the, like, get value train here, just trying to do cool things with Experimental Synthesizer, I might just die when my opponent plays something big like a Flage in a little while. Marsh Flats to graveyard there. There's a problem card. My opponent has the Bombardment immediately. So they're going to sack the cat. 1 damage marked here. And then as a second main phase hipster, they make a cat warrior token in their second main phase. So I have a 2/2. I've drawn a land. I Pyrite Spellbomb, it seems like, to kill this. Bam. Land drop. 2 damage to the blocker, which means I'm going to take 1 to the face when my opponent sacrifices that. And then I have exactly 3 power to kill the Planeswalker. Send it. Hot damn. So I think that's the turn. I think I play Experimental Synthesizer next turn, where I'm more likely to be able to get good value off of it. Although there's some really tough considerations for, like, when exactly do I play it. I think it's pre-combat. Alright, it's just happening again. A dashed I think I have to let that happen. Otherwise, it's too easy for me to lose both constructs. Wait, I'm already losing both constructs, right? So, ing a construct. My opponent will have 3 creatures or the 0 ability, which kills one. Sack Ragavan, kill the other. Yeah, so I'm unhappy. All right, so my opponent transforms. But this time, my opponent doesn't have as many creatures now, so this one does get to live doing it this way. All right, Renko. Renko is a distraction. I need to Goblin Bombardment and Gleeful Demolition this turn. I have 4 total mana. If I play Experimental Synthesizer, I can Gleeful Demolition that, and that still works. Okay. Trigger a land. A land is fine. 16. Do this. Play Goblin Bombardment. I'm actually going to Gleeful Demolition a treasure token to save Experimental Synthesizer for next turn. I don't think I need that bonus mana next turn. Fuck, this is a 2/2 now. Wait, no, that doesn't matter. So Goblin Bombardment, hit that. You can ping a goblin in response. I throw said goblin at Ajani. All right, cool. Dueling Goblin Bombardments. What a headache. All right. Please no third Ajani. Land. It is Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. That is a great value-oriented card. Hopefully I just get more value than my opponent, though. Bonus land. Franco already has haste. So I'm going to sacrifice an artifact, right? Yes. Let's stack these this way so I can see what it is from Experimental Synthesizer first. Crime Novelist. So I only have 2 mana, so I can't actually cast that. So yes, I will do this ability. Get +1/+1 counters on these creatures. And then we just work towards this construct token being something that we sacrifice to Krenko in all likelihood. I think I am just sending in with these. Oh, we're trading. Acceptable. I will make my land drop and pass the turn. So my opponent gets a couple of cards with Fable of the Mirrorbreaker here. So between a Surveil and a few looks with Fable, they have a few looks to find a big hitter like Flage that can try to spin this game. My Krenko, is a 4/4, so it does not immediately die to a Flage trigger, but it does die to Flage plus Goblin Bombardment. My opponent kept a card, and then did not cast it. This bonus Goblin Bombardment does me no good. So I can just attack for 7, or I can sacrifice this, make a Goblin, attack for 5. I think I will just attack for 7. Alright, my opponent just takes it. I guess I cast this. I don't have looting in this deck. Fable of the Mirrorbreaker is something that I was thinking about might be good in this deck. It makes artifacts and loots away my weird cards. There's Reflection of Kiki Jiki. Opponent is effectively at 1 life. I can throw these creatures at them with Goblin Bombardment. Yes. I think this is worth throwing a construct token. So this gives me Krenko trigger as well. Oh, I guess I could have gone face then. Throw at face, Krenko trigger. Yeah. I missed that. Alright, that is a Goblin Bombardment trigger to my face in response. Yep, I did have lethal. Synthesizer is sick. Synthesizer hits another Krenko. So I just have lethal a whole bunch of different ways here. I could think about what is the most optimal way to do this. Or I could just click on the cards until my opponent dies, which is what I'm going to do. I'll pay 1 for that ability. I'll put counters on all these creatures. I have lethal through Goblin Bombardment now. I could play a new Krenko as well, sacrificing stuff to Goblin Bombardment here. Alright, we did things. Johnny sucks though. So I probably want removal, and I probably want Pithing Needles, or either my opponent's Goblin Bombardments or the backside of Ajani. Alright, Spellbomb is something I can think about as well. I'm going to cut Goblin Engineer like I've done in every round. Then it gets weird. Flage matters. I should potentially keep a Soul Guide Lantern to permanently answer Flage. Pyrite Spellbomb is an artifact, but it is slow. I do not know that the game that I just had is a representative game of how this matchup is actually going to be. Like, I had to fight over cats, but I was not fighting over the 1-drops as well. And as soon as I'm fighting over the 1-drops, trying to activate Pyrite Spellbomb at 2 mana becomes a lot harder on the draw in particular. At what point am I just cutting Bobble because it's slow? Like, it's redraws towards my land, which matter because I'm a 21 land deck. That might be what's happening here. I will be slightly more inclined to keep hands with lands after doing that. There's a turn 2 removal spell. This has goblins later. This hand doesn't really do anything now, though. I think it's so easy for Ragavan or Guide of Souls or Ocelot Pride to do a lot in the first turn cycle and make this kind of bad. I'm mulligan. Good God. Okay, nope. Third hand is also bad, but third hand interacts on turn 1. This is 5. So keep 1, 2, 3. You have the potential to make mana. You have the potential to do something busted. If beggars can be choosers, I would specifically like to draw a fetch land to trigger the Scallywag. That's what I want. Absolutely not. You do not get to keep that. Hey, it's the fetch land that I want. Get out. The bodies are such a big deal for when we get to the mid-game with things like Goblin Bombardment starting to take over games. Hey, it's Goblin Bombardment. So, let's fetch land, drop Scallywag, and get my bonus treasure. And then maybe we can do some Krenko aggro stuff over the next few turns. The Urza Saga really works against me just trying to tap out for Krenko and then follow it up with Experimental Synthesizer the following turn. Tapped land. That asshole. Yep. So that's Bombardment. Ping my creature. And this whole thing happens again. Alright, does Kuldotha Rebirth do it for me? I can play Krenko as a 3/3 haster and attack. That's kind of what I have this turn. Next turn is pretty darn good, but my Krenko might be dead. Alright. So this happens. Yeah, like I can rebirth. Well, I could hypothetically rebirth. It's not going to work out here. But like running out of artifacts is a big problem in the short term. Alright, so Goblin Bombardment sacks it. And then next turn, there's tension between wanting to just make my Urza Saga token and wanting to do Krenko things. Honestly, we'll just see how bad this turn is for me. Seasoned Pyromancer. That makes 1 elemental token, meaning that when Ajani zeros, my opponent has 3 bodies, meaning my Krenko is dead. And I might just be terminally behind at this point. Shadow Spear is interesting. I could make a token at my opponent's end step. It is a 2/2. It's a 3/3 after I make another one. I can't really get Shadow Spear in and equipped afterwards. I have Pithing Needle. I do have Pithing Needle in. So Pithing Needle on one of these two becomes the path forward. Okay. Now the other one of those cards is still going to be very, very bad for me. But I've got something that I'm playing towards at least. But then I think I'm going to be choked on mana after Urza Saga is gone. Alright. Damage report. Fuck. Yeah, this is awful. So now my opponent zeros. They ping me for a gajillion D. I'm at 12. Goblin Bombardment. It triggers Ajani. My opponent does transform immediately. I'm at 11. 0 Ajani again. I will take 5 more damage. I am at 6. So I can block a 2/2, take 3 damage, die to Goblin Bombardment. Very, very dead. We've got a game 3. I would very much like my opponent to not have Ajani Goblin Bombardment this game. That's real tough to beat. Okay, so what does this hand do? This hand plays Experimental Synthesizer on turn 2? Just land pass, play this on 2, play that into Gleeful Demolition, maybe hit a land drop off the top to get some value off of this, do that into Krenko, and then Enterprising Scallywag just is like awkward in that mix. I don't know that this is fast enough. I think a lot of times my opponent plays a 1-drop and I'm just fucking terrified. 19, 17. Yeah. There are scarier 1-drops. Geez, that's awkward. Am I going to wait on experimental synthesizer? Try to hit a land drop with it next turn now? I guess. Yeah, not being able to use my mana to try to get value is feeling really bad here. Alright, second land drop. I'll kill the Ragavan when it attacks. I'm not going to give my opponent that value, but I'm just fucking terrified of Ajani coming down. Alright, Guide of Souls Ocelot Pride instead. Yep. What my opponent's doing is just so much easier than the hoops that I am trying to jump through for value. And, like, the impact on the game is so much more immediate. Alright, so let's try to hit a land drop. I did hit a land drop. It is an incredibly awkward land drop. I'm going to Gleeful Demolition this. I'm going to try to set up to actually have some goblins for if I draw a Goblin Bombardment. Okay. So I will Urza Saga. And I will play Pithing Needle on the backside of Ajani. And I need to look up its name. Nakatl Avenger. Or do I just name Goblin Bombardment? Goblin Bombardment is my current best way to break up this bullshit. Avenger? Avenger. Opponent has third land drop. God damn it. Fuck! Alright. Concede Modern. Quit format. GG's. We're dead. We did manage to put 2 wins on the board. Alright. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Fundamentally flawed. I do not believe that this deck is strong enough to hang in Modern as it is currently constructed. I think the deck physically needs more artifacts. I believe the good artifact lands are banned in Modern. I forget. Don't follow this format. You could play some bridges. This deck is not good at using its mana on turn 1 as it's currently built. You could play some ETB tapped bridges in this deck somewhat reasonably. I want to cut Goblin Engineer from this deck list and just play artifacts in its slots. And I would like things that produce artifacts. The Fable of the Mirror Breaker is a card that just produces artifacts while also being a goblin. That seems like a slam dunk here. If you go a little bit heavier on the artifacts, you can then start playing Mox Opal. Mox Opal letting you accelerate into your cards like Krekno and Crime Novelist actually seems pretty good. I am not sure about Mishra's Bauble. Mishra's Bauble is something that lets you do some work with the Scallywag, but a lot of times I was just wanting to just cycle it immediately to redraw for a land. I am not sure if Urza Saga is good in this deck. The disappearing land problem was very much real, and I was feeling some tension with the multiple red pip turns of like Synthesizer into Rebirth, or like I have an Urza Saga that I would like to play on turn 2, but now this Krekno is dead in hand for a few turns afterwards. I think you need a little more raw power here. Get some broken Modern cards into this. You can also just do more things that make this stuff better, like your Goblin Bushwhacker style cards. I don't know, just maybe fucking play Ragavan. Ragavan makes treasures too. I think this deck is not playing enough broken cards. So find a way to get more artifacts in here. Find a way to get more broken cards in here. The core idea itself is very neat, but we popped off hard once, like game 1, round 1. And then a lot of the rest of the time we were doing cool goblin stuff and not big combo churn through parts of our deck with multiple synthesizers go wild sort of stuff. So John, I hope that feedback is useful. This was a very neat deck. I think the idea is on the right track, but I still think you've got some tinkering to do. All right, folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. And remember, if you need some new cards, consider checking out my sponsor to support my channel. Promo code ThrabenU. All right, see ya.